shocking new report claims Myles Garrett has requested a trade to the Chiefs. The stunning twist comes just as rumors linked him to the Rams, creating a potential power shift in the AFC. Stay tuned to find out what's really behind the report and what it could mean for Kansas City. Here's what just happened. The Cleveland Browns traded two-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett to the Los Angeles Rams for two-time Pro Bowl pass rusher Jared Verse and multiple draft picks. This is one of those trades that redraws the map. Every contender in the NFL woke up today in a different world, and no team felt the shockwave harder than the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs' 2026 schedule was never going to be a walk in the park, but it got even trickier on Monday when Ian Rappaport dropped a bombshell report that the Browns and Rams had agreed to send star pass rusher Garrett to LA because the Rams are on Kansas City's schedule this year, meaning the offensive line will have its work cut out protecting Patrick Mahomes that week. Think about what that means. Mahomes, already coming back from injury, now has to face the most dominant edge rusher in football history in the regular season, wearing a Rams uniform, playing in front of a SoFi crowd that's already salivating at a Super Bowl run. That's not just a scheduling problem, that's a nightmare. Adding Garrett makes the Rams the most formidable team in the NFL on paper, and it continues a busy offseason for a Sean McVay team that finished as the NFC runner-up. Ahead of free agency, the Rams traded a first, third, fifth, and sixth round pick to the Kansas City Chiefs for all-pro cornerback Trent McDuffie before signing him to an extension that made him the highest paid corner in the league. So the Chiefs didn't just lose McDuffie to their schedule rival. They handed LA the pieces to build something that could beat them in February. Watching the Rams maneuver free agency was a perfect example of the rich getting richer. Their glaring weakness heading into free agency was their secondary, and they took both McDuffie and Watson away from the Chiefs' cornerback room. Now add the best pass rusher on the planet to that equation. Chiefs fans aren't just worried about a regular season game. They're looking at the team most likely to stand between Mahomes and another ring, a team the Chiefs literally helped build. At this juncture, the Kansas City Chiefs might be the toughest team to predict in the NFL. On one hand, you'll have Patrick Mahomes eventually coming back from injury, with Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Steve Spagnuolo, Eric Bieniemy, and Chris Jones among a core from their dynasty days. But on the other hand, that core is aging, and the window they had to add a player like Garrett has now slammed shut, with LA on the other side of it. So what did the Chiefs miss? What would Garrett actually have meant for Kansas City? And how did a player who spent 9 years carrying a broken franchise finally force his way out to the one team best positioned to win it all? Let's go back to where this story actually starts. Myles Garrett is an American professional football defensive end who played college football for the Texas A&M Aggies, receiving unanimous All-American honors in 2016. Selected first overall by the Browns in the 2017 NFL Draft, Garrett is the team's all-time career sacks leader. From the moment he stepped on the field as a rookie, it was obvious this wasn't a normal football player. On his first NFL play, he dropped Josh McCown for an 8-yard loss on October 8, 2017, and finished the game with 2 sacks, becoming the first #1 overall pick with multiple sacks in his first game, and the first Brown with at least 2 sacks in his NFL debut since 1988. He was a force from day one, but for 9 years, the franchise around him was a disaster. Quarterback after quarterback, losing season after losing season, Garrett said he did not want to go through another rebuild in Cleveland. At the conclusion of the 6th losing season he had experienced since entering the league in 2017, Garrett said the 2024 season was more disappointing than Cleveland's 0-16 season. In his rookie year, let that sink in. He played on a winless team as a rookie and still found a way to say things got worse. Despite all of it, Garrett kept putting up numbers that belong in a different conversation entirely. He is the only player in NFL history to record at least 14 sacks in 4 consecutive seasons. He is the only NFL player with at least 10 sacks in each of the past 7 seasons. Every year, individual brilliance. Every year, team failure. He joined Reggie White, John Randall, DeMarcus Ware, Jared Allen, Bruce Smith, and Lawrence Taylor as the only NFL players to record 7 straight 10-sack seasons. The other players in that group are enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's the company Garrett keeps statistically, and he's still active. Then came 2025, the season where he stopped being a great player and became something else entirely. In the final week of the season against the Bengals, Garrett recorded his 23rd sack of the season, to break the single-season sack record of 22-5 set by Michael Strahan and T.J. Watt. After sacking quarterback Joe Burrow, the record that every pass rusher of the modern era had chased, Garrett broke it. His 33 tackles for loss were the second most in NFL history. Since the statistic became official, Garrett was named first-team All-Pro for the 5th time and earned a 7th career Pro Bowl nomination. Garrett unanimously won Defensive Player of the Year for the 2025 season. Best defensive season ever, and the Browns finished below 500 again. Garrett had done all of that while toiling with a Browns team that won one playoff game over a 6-year span. One playoff win in 6 years, while their player was arguably the best defender in the history of the sport. That's when Garrett decided enough was enough. In October, Myles Garrett told reporters he wanted to finish his career with the Browns. 2 months later, he went public with a request to be traded. What changed everything? The Browns kept losing games and finished 3-14 after beginning the season with Super Bowl aspirations. Then Garrett watched the league's best teams and best quarterbacks play in the postseason. He sat there in the offseason, one of the most decorated defensive players the game has ever seen, watching Patrick Mahomes and other quarterbacks play meaningful January football, knowing that in Cleveland, he'd never even come close. So he broke. Garrett said in a statement obtained by NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport that he'd like to move elsewhere prior to the 2025 NFL season. As a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. And that goal fuels me today more than ever. Garrett wrote, and then came the sentence that cut the deepest. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. Canton is where the Pro Football Hall of Fame lives, and Garrett, who was already walking into that building, was saying the Hall of Fame wasn't enough. He wanted a ring. The Browns' response: flat refusal. Browns general manager Andrew Berry said he wasn't interested in trading Garrett, even for a hypothetical offer of 2 first-round picks. Berry stood at the podium and told the world that Myles is a career Brown. He is one of the faces of our organization. I think we've been very clear, both past and present, in terms of our goals. Strong words. Words that aged about, as well as the Deshaun Watson trade. Reports emerged that Browns owner Jimmy Haslam wouldn't meet with Garrett, who was considering sitting out games. As it turns out, money talks. 2 days after that report, Garrett signed a 4-year, $160 million extension with Cleveland. The public drama went quiet. Garrett was staying. He was the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, at least for a moment. And Cleveland had their franchise cornerstone locked up through 2030. Or so they said. Garrett's frustration with Cleveland was once again rising. Could he request another trade and actually get it this time? Every month that the 2025 Browns season unraveled, that question got louder. Because beneath all the public statements and contract language, a quieter set of moves was being made, moves that told a very different story about what Cleveland was actually planning. Here's the part of this story that most people missed when it was happening. The Cleveland Browns reportedly made a somewhat recent modification to Garrett's contract. The Browns and Garrett agreed in March to defer $29 million in bonus payments, due over the next 3 years. The move opened no immediate salary cap space, and it meant the Browns would have to pay Garrett $10 million in guaranteed money, a week before the start of the regular season rather than in March. That sounds like an administrative tweak. A paperwork adjustment, nothing to see here, except the only real explanation for the modification, per Zach Jackson of The Athletic, is that both sides were at least opening a trade window. Think about what that means. While Andrew Berry was standing at podiums telling the world Garrett was untouchable, behind closed doors, both the player and the organization were quietly rearranging the furniture to make leaving possible. When the club modified his option bonus from March to 7 days before the regular season, it opened up a greater possibility of the Browns moving on from the edge rusher. The key date was June 1. In NFL cap accounting, trading a player after June 1 lets a team split the dead money hit across 2 seasons rather than absorbing it all at once. The contract tweak lowered what would have otherwise been a $64.5 million dead cap hit in 2026 by dealing Garrett. Now that it's past June 1, the $40 million dead cap hit can be spread over this year and next. Once they got past the June 1 deadline, the Browns signaled their full-on rebuild by moving their best player. Waiting until then allowed Cleveland to split the $41 million in dead money on the salary cap. Over the next 2 seasons, $15.53 million in 2026, and $25.56 million in 2027, rather than taking it all on in 2026. Meanwhile, the Rams were on the phone constantly. The Rams initially offered a package of picks in return for Garrett, but Cleveland held firm to its public stance. The Browns told the Rams that no deal would get done without including the 25-year-old Verse, the Rams' 2024 first-round pick, who had 12 sacks and 22 tackles for loss the past 2 seasons. It was an ask that took guts. Cleveland wasn't just asking for picks. They were demanding a player, a young, ascending Pro Bowl pass rusher as the centerpiece. The Rams initially weren't interested in moving Verse, but eventually began to consider a package with him as long as the draft picks were adjusted appropriately. And just like that, the biggest defensive trade in modern NFL history was done. Following the ill-fated Watson gambit in 2022, the Browns had struggled to find any sort of footing, lacked assets to make significant additions, and still had no clear future under center. In one swift move, they admitted they're still in the early stages of a rebuild and provided future picks to one day possibly get over that hump. The Chiefs were watching all of this, and somewhere in Kansas City, a front office was calculating too late what they could have done differently. Garrett has faced off against the Chiefs 3 times in his career and recorded 2 sacks in those games. So Kansas City has done okay against him, but the Rams are going to be a whole different animal. That's the understated version of Kansas City's problem. The louder version sounds like this: the Rams just added the best defensive player in football to a roster that already had the reigning MVP at quarterback, the #1 scoring offense in the NFL, and now, after pillaging the Chiefs' secondary, 2 of the best corners in the league. The Rams' acquisition of Garrett should firmly plant them as one of the Super Bowl favorites again this year. Los Angeles had the NFL MVP in Matthew Stafford and the #1 scoring offense in the NFL. Now they have added the reigning Defensive Player of the Year to a defense that ranked 10th in points allowed and 5th in takeaways. And the Super Bowl is coming to SoFi Stadium in February 2027. All this comes as the franchise is set to host Super Bowl LXI in February at SoFi Stadium. The Rams aren't just building for the future, they're building for home. So where does that leave Kansas City? Chiefs fans have been vocal about this. The what-if energy on social media is loud, and it's justified. The conversation keeps circling back to the same point. The Chiefs had the dynasty window. They had Mahomes, and when the chance came to pair him with a generational defensive weapon, the front office blinked. There's a reasonable argument that Garrett is the best player to be traded in the modern NFL during the prime of his career. At 30, he is coming off 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Over the past 3 seasons, he's a 5-time first-team All-Pro, having picked up all of those honors over the past 6 seasons. If the Rams were going to add any one player to their roster in the hopes of winning a championship in 2026, Garrett might have been the pick. It's fair to wonder whether he might have been the best player in football in 2025, even if he didn't generate serious MVP consideration by virtue of playing on the Browns. But he was comfortably the most productive defensive player in the game. Now he's a Ram, and the Chiefs will see him on their schedule. An edge rusher who is so fast off the ball that even when blockers are technically in position, they don't register as relevant. NFL Next Gen Stats noted that Garrett had 8 unblocked sacks in 2025. Not because blockers weren't trying, but because Garrett was simply so explosive that the blockers who were trying to get in his way weren't close enough for the system to register them as relevant. Mahomes will get to experience that firsthand. And Garrett, he finally gets what he spent 9 years chasing. In a social media post, he thanked the Browns and their fans, saying the city of Cleveland shaped him and made me tougher, adding the best days of this franchise are ahead. It was a graceful goodbye, the kind you write when you genuinely love a place. But you've spent 9 years watching it fail you at the team level. While you personally achieved everything a defensive player can achieve, he has probably already done enough to earn a spot in the Hall of Fame before taking a snap in a Rams uniform. But taking that snap, that's what this was always about, not Canton a ring. Los Angeles' late season schedule will now become absolute must-see TV for NFL fans. They face the Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving week, then host the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. When that Chiefs-Rams game kicks off, Patrick Mahomes will be standing across from Myles Garrett, the most dominant defensive player alive, now on a team built to win right now, playing in a stadium that's hosting the Super Bowl in 4 months. And Kansas City will have to answer a question that their front office created for themselves. What did we do to stop this from happening? The answer, for now, is nothing. The Chiefs watched, the Rams acted, and the NFL just got a lot more interesting.